Franklin Parker's voice boomed through the ballroom, smooth and confident, the kind of voice that never doubted it would be obeyed. "And now," he said, pausing just long enough for the room to quiet, "for the most meaningful wedding gift of all, my daughter, Evelyn, will be giving her penthouse to her sister, Lydia." The applause started instantly. Glasses clinked. People turned their heads toward me with warm smiles, as if I were about to stand up and accept a standing ovation. I stood frozen near the champagne tower, a crystal flute halfway to my lips, my mind struggling to catch up with what my father had just said. My penthouse, my home, announced like a raffle prize. "I'm Evelyn Parker. I'm 30 years old. And 3 years ago, I bought that penthouse in San Francisco with money I earned myself, after years of 18-hour days, skipped holidays, and nights where sleep felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. While other people my age were posting photos from rooftop bars and weekend getaways, I was building a consulting business from scratch, proving to a family that had always underestimated me that I was more than the quiet, practical daughter in the background. That penthouse wasn't just real estate, it was proof. Proof that the girl they called not special could become something on her own. The ballroom at the Fairmont Hotel glittered under crystal chandeliers. Lydia's wedding was exactly what she wanted: dramatic, expensive, and designed to look perfect on social media. She stood at the center of it all in her custom ivory gown, glowing, adored, the way she always had been. Lydia Parker, my older sister, the favorite, the dreamer, the one whose failures were always reframed as experiments and phases, funded quietly by everyone else. Mostly by me. My father smiled proudly at the crowd, his rented tux pressed just enough to pass at a distance. He looked relieved, like a man who had just solved a problem he'd been carrying for months. And I realized, with a sick twist in my stomach, that this wasn't spontaneous. This had been planned, rehearsed, packaged as generosity. Lydia turned toward me then, her eyes wide and pleading, wearing that familiar look I'd known since childhood. The look that said, "Don't embarrass me. Don't ruin this. Just say yes." I felt the weight of 200 expectations settle on my shoulders. Family comes first. That had always been the rule, the excuse, the reason my savings disappeared, my credit score took hits, my boundaries dissolved. Family came first when Lydia needed money for a business that never launched. Family came first when she needed a co-signer. Family came first when I was told I could figure things out because I was the responsible one. I lowered my glass, my hand trembling just enough to notice. Then a chair scraped loudly against the floor at the back of the room. A man stood up, tall, calm, wearing a tailored dark suit that didn't scream for attention, yet somehow commanded it anyway. He didn't raise his voice, but when he spoke, the room fell silent as if someone had cut the music mid-note. "Touch her assets without consent," he said evenly, "and you may lose yours." Every head turned. Even the wedding band stopped playing. My father frowned, clearly irritated that someone had interrupted his moment. "Excuse me?" he snapped into the microphone. The man stepped forward, unhurried, the kind of confidence that comes from never needing to explain yourself. "Property transfers require agreement," he said, "not public ambush." I stared at him, my heart pounding. I didn't know who he was, but for the first time that night, I felt like I wasn't standing alone. Lydia laughed nervously, trying to soften the tension. "Oh, Evelyn doesn't mind," she said quickly. "She's always been generous with family." That word again, generous, as if generosity meant surrender. My father cleared his throat, forcing a smile back onto his face. "My daughter understands priorities," he said. "She knows what family means." Something shifted inside me then, a quiet crack. I heard my own voice before I realized I was speaking. "I don't remember agreeing to give away my home," I said. The room felt suddenly very small. I must have missed that family meeting. The silence that followed was sharp and electric. The stranger met my eyes as he reached the front of the ballroom. "Caleb Monroe," he said, offering his hand, "CEO of Monroe Systems." His grip was firm, steady, and I believe you deserve the chance to speak for yourself. In that moment, surrounded by chandeliers, strangers, and a family that had just tried to rewrite my life in one sentence, I understood something with absolute clarity. This wedding wasn't just about Lydia. It was about control. And for the first time, I was ready to take it back. The silence after my last sentence didn't feel empty. It felt heavy, like the air itself was waiting to see whether I would collapse back into the version of myself my family was used to, or keep going. I kept going. For years, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I was told I was lucky to be the practical one, the responsible one, the one who didn't need help. I looked at my father first, then at Lydia. What that really meant was that my money was always available. My name, my credit, my time. A few guests shifted in their seats. Someone near the back cleared their throat. No one interrupted me. My college savings disappeared before I ever set foot on campus, I continued. It went into Lydia's first business, then her second. Then the third one we stopped calling a business and started calling a transition. I let out a short, humorless breath. Every time it failed, I was told the same thing. She just needs a little more support. Lydia shook her head, already crying, the way she always did when the spotlight turned uncomfortable. That's not fair, she said. You offered. I turned to her. I offered help. I didn't offer my future. The words echoed louder than I expected. I talked about the credit cards I'd quietly paid off, the wedding deposits for ceremonies that never made it past the planning stage, the nights I lay awake calculating how much I could afford to lose without losing everything. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't have to. The truth did the work for me. That was when Caleb spoke again. I've been reviewing Evelyn's professional background for 6 months, he said calmly, addressing the room as if this were a board meeting, not a wedding reception. I intended to offer her a senior role at my company. He paused, just long enough for that to land. During standard due diligence, something unusual came up. My stomach tightened. I hadn't known everything yet. I only knew enough to sense the ground shifting beneath my feet. The Penthouse, he said, looking directly at my father now, has been rented out for the past 3 months. The room reacted instantly. Gasps, murmurs. Lydia's head snapped up. That's impossible, I said, before I could stop myself. I would have known. You should have, Caleb replied gently, but the lease wasn't signed by you. My father's face drained of color. My mother stared at the floor. They set up a property management entity, Caleb continued, registered under Lydia's name. Rent payments totaling $90,000 were deposited over 3 months. The number hit me like a physical blow. $90,000, earned while I was traveling for work, trusting that my home was exactly where I'd left it. I felt something inside me go cold. That money, I said slowly, was never mine to give. Rachel stood up then. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Rachel Kim had that rare presence that made people listen the moment she moved. I'm a corporate attorney, she said, addressing the guests. I was asked this morning to review documentation related to Evelyn's assets. All evidence has been obtained legally. Security records, financial transfers, corporate filings. She turned toward my parents. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a pattern. The word hung in the air. I looked around the ballroom and barely recognized it anymore. The music felt distant, the chandeliers too bright. What had started as a wedding had become something else entirely, a reckoning unfolding in real time. This wasn't about generosity, I said quietly. It was about control, about deciding what belonged to me without asking. My father opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time in my life, he didn't have a speech ready. Caleb glanced at me, not to rescue me, but to make sure I was still standing on my own. I was. The celebration had stopped pretending, and neither was I. The story had taken a completely different turn. The moment everything truly collapsed didn't come with shouting. It came with paper. Caleb stepped closer to the microphone and held up a thin folder, the kind that looks harmless until you know what's inside. There's one more document, he said, his voice controlled, almost regretful. One I hoped we wouldn't need to discuss in public. My chest tightened. This, he continued, opening the folder, is a power of attorney bearing Evelyn Parker's name. The room seemed to tilt. I felt it before I fully understood it. That instinctive, bone-deep certainty that something had gone very wrong. I never signed that, I said immediately. My voice didn't shake. I was past that stage. "You didn't," Rachel said beside me. "We had a handwriting analyst review it." A wave of sound rippled through the guests. Gasps, sharp whispers. Someone dropped a glass. Caleb didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. This document was used as collateral to secure a loan against the Penthouse. For a second, I couldn't breathe. A loan, against my home, taken without my knowledge, without my consent. "That's not possible," my father said too quickly. "That has to be a mistake." Rachel turned to him. "Forgery of a power of attorney is a federal offense." The word federal landed like a gavel. I looked at my mother. She didn't look back. Lydia took a step forward, panic flashing across her face. "I didn't know anything about that," she said, her voice high, brittle. "Dad handled all the paperwork. I just—" "Stop," her husband said. It was the first time he'd spoken in minutes. He was standing very still now, staring at Lydia like she was a stranger who'd walked into his life wearing her face. "What paperwork?" he asked quietly. "You told me you owned multiple properties. You told me the Penthouse was just one of your investments." Lydia laughed, sharp and desperate. "I do. I will. Evelyn was helping me." "No," he said. "You said it was yours." The silence that followed was unbearable. I watched his expression change in real time. Confusion giving way to doubt, doubt hardening into something colder. "Your company," he continued, "the consulting firm you said you ran. The portfolio you showed my parents." Rachel exhaled slowly. "Those entities don't exist." Lydia's breath hitched. "That's not true." "It is," Rachel replied. "We checked." The room felt too bright, too exposed. Every lie Lydia had ever told was peeling away under the lights. "That's why you insisted on the prenup," he said softly. "You weren't protecting assets. You were protecting a story." Lydia's mouth opened, then closed. No words came out. Then she broke. She turned suddenly, grabbing the edge of the wedding cake table as if she needed something solid to hold on to. "This is my wedding!" she screamed. "You're all trying to ruin my life." And with one violent motion, she shoved. The 5-tier cake tilted, swayed, and collapsed in a slow, horrible cascade. Frosting splattered the floor. Decorative flowers snapped. One tier cracked open completely. Inside wasn't cake. It was foam. Someone laughed. Not kindly, not quietly. I stared at the wreckage, stunned by the symbolism of it. Layers of decoration. Weightless inside. Built to look impressive and hollow at its core. Just like everything Lydia had ever sold to the world. Her husband stepped back from her, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. "I can't do this," he said. "I don't even know who you are." "Don't say that," she begged, reaching for him. "I can't explain." "You've been explaining for years," he replied. "None of it was real." He turned toward the officiant, his voice steady now. "I want an annulment." The word echoed louder than the crash of the cake. Lydia sank to the floor, her dress smeared with frosting and foam, her perfect day in ruins. I stood there, surrounded by broken lies and stunned faces, and felt something unexpected rise in my chest. Not triumph, relief. Because at last, there was nowhere left for the truth to hide. The room was still buzzing when Caleb spoke again, but this time his voice cut through the chaos with precision. "Evelyn," he said, turning toward me, not the crowd. "I didn't come here only to interrupt a wedding." Every eye shifted. "I came because I believe in your work," he continued, "and because after everything I've seen tonight, I'm even more certain you're the kind of leader my company needs." I felt the weight of the moment settle in my chest. Not fear, not disbelief. Something steadier. Something earned. "I'm offering you the position of Chief Technology Officer," he said plainly. 7-figure compensation, equity included, full authority to build your own team. The room erupted again, but it sounded distant, muffled, like I was underwater. 7 figures. Equity, authority. Words that, just hours earlier, would have felt abstract. Now they felt real. Immediate. Dangerous in the best possible way. My father found his voice then. "You can't be serious," Franklin snapped. "This is a family matter." Caleb didn't even look at him. It stopped being a family matter the moment Fraud entered the room. I looked at my father. For the first time, I didn't see authority. I saw desperation. "You're really going to walk away?" he demanded. After everything we've done for you? I almost laughed. You mean after everything I've funded? I asked calmly. His face hardened. If you do this, he said, lowering his voice like it was a threat meant only for me. Don't expect anything from this family. No inheritance, no protection. You'll be on your own. The words should have scared me. For years, they would have. Instead, I felt oddly peaceful. I already am, I said. The room went quiet again. My grandfather made his decision years ago, I continued. He didn't trust you to manage what he built, so he didn't give you the chance. My mother finally looked up at me, eyes wide. What are you saying? I'm saying, I replied, that you don't have leverage anymore. That was the moment my father realized he'd lost control. Not tonight, not just at the wedding. He'd lost it years ago and never noticed, because I never stopped paying the bills. Caleb stepped closer and handed me a tablet. The contract was already open. My name at the top. Clean. Professional. No pressure. Just an offer. You don't have to sign this here, he said quietly, but I wanted you to know it's real. I didn't hesitate. I signed. The act itself was simple. A stylus against glass. But the meaning of it hit me like a wave. With one signature, I wasn't just accepting a job. I was choosing myself in front of everyone who had spent years assuming I never would. My father stared at me like I'd just committed a crime. You're tearing this family apart, he said. I met his gaze without flinching. No, I'm just refusing to be torn apart anymore. I turned to Lydia, still on the floor, her dress ruined, her image shattered. I'm not abandoning you, I said, but I'm done sacrificing myself to keep your story alive. She didn't answer. She couldn't. I won't fund lies, I continued. I won't sign things I don't agree to, and I won't be silent to make anyone else comfortable. Caleb nodded once, not in approval, but in recognition. The decision had been made. The chaos around me continued. Whispers, raised voices, shocked faces. But inside, everything felt still. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't defending. I wasn't explaining. I had drawn a line, and no one was crossing it again. 6 months later, the noise had finally settled. Not the internet noise, not the gossip. That faded quickly, replaced by the next scandal, the next viral moment. What lingered were the consequences. The quiet, irreversible kind that reshape lives long after the audience has moved on. My father was facing a financial investigation. Not a dramatic arrest, not handcuffs in public, but something far worse for a man like him. Exposure. His accounts were frozen. His credibility evaporated. The same people who once praised his confidence now avoided his calls. Reputation, I learned, is a currency that collapses fast once trust is gone. My mother went back to work. For the first time in decades, she had an alarm clock again. A modest job. Modest pay. She called it temporary, but I knew better. Reality doesn't negotiate the way entitlement does. She sent me a letter, an actual letter, written in careful handwriting, asking for forgiveness. I read it twice, then I put it away. Forgiveness, I decided, would come on my timeline, not hers. Lydia lost everything. The apartment she couldn't afford, the car she never truly owned, the image she had spent her entire life protecting. For a while, she disappeared. No calls, no messages. Then one day, a text came through. I got a job, it said. It's not great, but it's mine. She worked long hours now. Entry level. No shortcuts, no applause. Just effort, real effort. When we finally met for coffee weeks later, she looked tired in a way I had never seen before. Not broken, just human. I didn't know it was this hard, she admitted quietly. I nodded. I did. She didn't ask me for money. That was how I knew something had changed. As for me, I sold the Penthouse. Not out of bitterness, not to erase the past, but because I no longer needed proof of anything. I bought a smaller place in a quieter neighborhood. Fewer windows, fewer memories, every corner chosen by me, paid for by me, protected by boundaries no one else had keys to. My office now sits on the top floor of a glass building downtown. My name is on the door. The work is demanding, the responsibility enormous, but every decision I make is clean. No guilt attached, no invisible hands reaching into my success. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that wedding, about how humiliation felt like the end of my life, until it wasn't, until it became the beginning. Because here's the truth, no one tells you. When family treats you like a financial resource, walking away isn't betrayal, it's survival. It's choosing not to disappear so someone else can keep pretending. I didn't lose my family that day. I lost the illusion that silence was love, and I gained something far more valuable than approval, freedom. If you've listened to this story from the beginning, thank you for staying. As Christmas approaches, I want to wish you peace, warmth, and the courage to protect what's yours. Your time, your worth, your future. You deserve a life that doesn't require you to shrink. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories from women who found their voices when it mattered most. And wherever you're listening from, I hope this season brings you clarity, healing, and a fresh start. Merry Christmas. And remember, choosing yourself is never the wrong ending.